open yourself to the jealousy of people. Starting today's session with the essence of Rumi's Masnavi, one of the treasures at the Hazara Pioneers Library. Number 127. دانه باشیم مرغ کانت برچنم غنچه باشیم کودکانت برکنم دانه پنهان کن به کلی دام شو غنچه پنهان کن گیاه وام شو یعنی ای مطرب شده با آم خاص مرده شو چون من که تا یابی خلاص در پناه لطف حق باید گریخت کو هزاران لطف بر ارواح ریخت دانه باشی مرغکانت برچنند غنچه باشی کودکانت برکنند دانه پنهان کن به کلی دام شو غنچه پنهان کن گیاه بام شو یعنی ای مطرب شده با خاص و عام یعنی ای مطرب شده با عام و خاص مرده شو چون من که تا یابی خلاص در پناه لطف حق باید گریخت کو هزاران لطف بر ارواح ریخت Beauty, attractiveness, attraction causes jealousy. So you don't be one of them. Do not attract. And a slave is trying not to attract the attention of anybody in the Haram Sarai of Rahat Shahi who has just arrived from Kabul. He's back to his garden house. But what is a slave to do? What is her plan? Gul Begum has made a plan with Bibi to help her escape. Prison is much better than this palace. Chapter 22. A slave. जिसको आप खरीद भी सकते हैं सौदा में मितनिन खरीदा में मितनिन खुश मामत इतरफ किन खुश मामत उतरफ. So rapid had been the change in the Bibi's attitude towards her that Gul Begum for a moment felt that her position had been an insane one and could have wished it unproffered. Soon, however, she realized the greater discomfort at the moment might lead to something better in the future, if only her mother and other relations would stand by her. هم یک دفعه بیبی دید که تغییر کرد بسی باز جان خوی جیر کرد که ولا چرخم جان خو خلاص کنی گفت فقط یک برنامه مونیم که می رفیقای مقدم استواشه خانواده ما. What on earth have you said or done to offend the Bibi? The slave girl asked. و دیگه کنیز پرسان من مگه چیز گفتی تو بیبی را که خود قارش ماده. You have been very unwise, and I must not seem to notice you, or I shall get into trouble myself. مخطر نفهمیدم. But if I do what I can for you now and get you taken into favor by the master when he returns, you must not forget me later on. And Alamdar in Almaya, I have more influence than you perhaps think. Deal making. I shall never forget your kindness to me, but send my companions to me now, I entreat, was all Gulbegum could find words to say. Yes, when I can, but first I must send the Darwan to the Bibi. The girl replied, crouch down there in the corner as though you felt yourself to be humiliated, and later on I will come to you if I can. Gulbegum did as she was bid, and apparently her disgrace soon became the gossip of the haram. For now and again, one girl and sometimes two would come to look at her. So more often. Then laugh derisively and pass on, then come back and laugh again. Presently, the Darwan came through the garden door and passed into the large room where the Hazaras had first been received, and shortly afterwards the Bibi with several of her women entered the same room. What transpired she never knew, but in the meantime the other Hazaras had joined her, and she was completely engrossed in explaining her plan of action to them. What we have to do is to get out of this place at any cost. Burshudini astim, she said, and if you will only follow my advice boldly, we shall succeed. But do not ask me for details now. The very walls have ears. Dewal mushtara musham koshtara. What she really felt was that she dare not tell them that the Bibi, for her own selfish interests, was willing to befriend her. She could not trust one of them with such a secret as that, at a time when she had no idea what the next few hours would have in store for them all. Presently, the Darwan came out of the house and towards them as they sat crouching by the outhouse at the far end of the quadrangle. Oh, the Kunji. Haveli. What tomfoolery have you been up to? He said, addressing Gulbegum. You may have deceived the Bibi, but you can't deceive me. However, come and do as she bids, and as you have yourself chosen, come and work with the laborers in the garden. I'll give you a patch to yourself where no one will molest you, but I shall expect to be remembered for this service. And so Gulbegum's wish was realized, and she went to work among the beautiful, many-colored flowers under the shade of the spreading trees. But her heart was beating with the wildest hopes and fears. یک طرف آرزوها و امیدها پر میزنه، یک طرف خوف در میه. And a present time of evil that no beauty could allay, though after a time she felt soothed. یک لحظه بعد آرام شد. The soft balm air played through her hair, and fanned her burning temple. Badi khunuk kamaram kachra. And the gentle cooing of the turtle doves lulled her excited brains to something like rest. Are you going to get us away from here, Gul Begum? Shireen asked after a time. Don't ask me any questions, her cousin answered shortly. Only let us get near the water channel, and we will put some of this grey mud upon our face, so that if Farhad Shah could see us, he may think us old and ugly and send us away. Let us hope to some lowlier and less cruel household. And then to terrify her cousin into submission, she added rather pointedly, this is no place for people who cannot hold their own tongues. For it would appear that there are those here who are willing and ready to hold them for them. Gul Begum saw she had produced the desired effect. Not only on Shireen, but also on her aunt, who expressed great anxiety as to what would become of her daughter if she could not learn to control her insatiable desire to know more than her eyes could tell her. Go with Gul Begum, gosh ku gabazira, she said, and do as she bids you, and for God's sake, keep your mouth shut and don't get us all into trouble. Thank God we are outside on set of walls. Let us see if we can get outside the next set. When the two girls returned from the water channel, they were hardly recognizable. So skillfully had Gul Begum applied the grey, greasy mud, a piece of which she had almost unconsciously carried off with her from the Bibi's hum-hum. I was thinking of this question. Probably if the Turkish call it hum-hum, it might be the hammam of Farsi. Sauna diya, toilet, bathroom, whatever. Azunji qad khod ki wardad wanmu de gish manda damuram de ruikh mal dam gil ra. Qazu jan khuna mashya. Khuda, said her mother, prolonging the final ah in the way common to all Afghans when they wish to express astonishment. How poor a thing is beauty when a scrap of mud the size of a marble can efface it all. Khak damena muga zebai muga yak tote gil mitnawra da khak bomla. Quite late in the evening, there was a sound of horses' hooves, a barking of dogs, and a sort of short, sharp yap peculiar to Farhad Shah's much dreaded wolf dogs. Yup, 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 yup. Kada mayani particular onomu gurgi sagai gurgi ki maruf bud khat Farhad Shah. Sadai Gul Begum shuddered. The awful trial was drawing very near. Qiyamat mayan ali. How would it end? The turtle doves fluttered in their nests above her. Par 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 par. Quarreling, she supposed, by the feathers that came scattering down all around her. پرای مفتم بگینا یک حالتی تشنجی دیگر مثلی دیگی آدم ده حالتی تشنج مارا. There seemed no peace, no rest anywhere, not even in this Garden of Eden with its flower-scented atmosphere. I mean, jam jahannama, the many khodi bisht. Tents were soon pitched in every direction. Khayma zada shud and a regular camp established under the trees. Only the master and several women, easily recognizable as Hazara prisoners, went inside the second enclosure. Hazara prisoners the campaign ki Farhad Shah was Kabul maya was جنگی آذرا مایه درو از اونجا سیرا و مال غنیمت و نار کابل تقسیم کده باز بایسی خود قرار ده دزی باغ بالای خو که اینجا انجوی کنه. When all was quiet again, the Darwan came and spoke to Gul Begum. There is no good in my speaking of you to Farhad Shah tonight. Imsha wa namsha. He will be taken up with Bibi and the other ladies and showing them what he has brought from the war and telling them of the great deeds he has done. مشان اشتنيق سكدنيق شطور مجان رفتيم شطور غنيمة يفتيم شطور غنام وكنيس بيدا قديم شطور كشتيم شطور in the زديم in the كنديم. He is tired and will go to rest early, but what have you been doing to yourself? The old man went on, noticing the change in the girl's appearance. Is that how you hope to win your way into Farhad Shah's favor? I wish to win my way to Kabul. To the Amir, Gul Begum said, as if by some sudden inspiration. And if you will help me, I will not forget you. The man looked at her, surprised. You have great ambitions. He said, what will you do when you get to the Amir? God knows. She said, sighing, but I might chance to find favor in his eyes. I don't see how that is to be brought about, he said. I can see no way of helping you to that. I don't ask you to help me. The girl pleaded. Only do not hinder me. And tell Farhad Shah, if he mentions me, Badazma, you think me ugly. See how old and worn I look. I see you have been disfiguring yourself, he said. But if I tell Farhad Shah that you are ugly, there are plenty of others who will deny what I have said. You don't want me to get into trouble, do you? And after providing the women with a rough shelter for the night, the old man left them, but not for long. Said to be God, the sun was just showing above the horizon when Gul Begum was summoned inside the inner enclosure. And she found herself in the outer chamber of the Ham where the Bibi had received her the day before. And presently the Bibi herself entered hastily but noiselessly. Farhad Shah is asleep, she said. He came home in the best of humors last night. He had traveled straight from Kabul, where he was received with marked favor by the Amir, and was presented with a medal, tamghi shuja'at, and a khilat, coat of honor. He asked about you, and I told him what we had arranged. He should be told. He seemed more amused than angry. and then I begged of him to send you away to Kabul, to the prison, as a punishment for your having insulted me by presuming on my credulity. He told me to do as I liked. As for the moment, he has more girls than he well knows what to do with. So for now, to horses and to Kabul with you. I have done all I can for you. I have arranged that one of the laborers shall take you, and you can have the horse you brought, for Farhad Shah will never miss it, and you have far to go. May God protect you, and do not forget what I have helped you in your need. So Gul Begum, to her astonishment, found herself in less than an hour on her way to Kabul. Guarded only by one soldier and the laborer who led the horse and who received strict injunctions from the Darwan to return it to the master, as he might hear of it and ask for it. Darwan gufta yi asba ki pas mairi. Long afterwards, from one of the Hazara slaves, Farhad Shah brought with him that night, Gul Begum heard of the fate from which she and her companions had been spared by the timely intervention of the Bibi. وداستانی که اونا کده بودن به خاطر ازی برنامه‌ای که زود جان خود از این بر کده بودن خلاصه یک اندازه‌اش داشتن که چیکار خواهد شد خود جنا بینا شکر دزی که جان خلاص کردن از اینجی. Farhad Shah awoke to find he had much to do, very busy day, and therefore but little time for rest and enjoyment. خیلی کاره. The Hazaras, who were said to have so imposed on the credulity of the household, did not at first cross his mind, but when they did, he ordered them to be sent for. اول خود د فکر نبود خیلی مشغول کار بود، بعد د فکر شد که کی درباره ازی خانه بی‌ادبی کرده، امونا کجا شد امونا بیرون امونا. I'll teach them to deceive me, he said. Oh, where are the dogs? We'll have some sport and see how they can run, these women. تو بیرو تو بیم سگارم بیرو تو کشتور نه فرار منه کشتور دو تانه. You ordered them to jail, his wife explained. They have been sent off long ago. خود شما گفتین که زندان کنین ارمو روان کردیم. It was not for me to keep them here when once you had passed judgment on them. ما فوراً تعمیل کردم اونا رو گفتیم ببرین داخل زندان روان کردیم. Sent off long ago? Farhad Shah exclaimed. Why do you tell me such lies? Dragnagi, I have not yet been 48 hours in this house. How can you call it long ago? دوشاونم شمام دم تو مگه اوگا اونا موگا روان کده. I should have said immediately you gave the order. Mani, amu waqt ki shuma amr kadi, amu waqt rawan kadi una. His wife put in gently. Before her lord, she was a very different person from the wild cat who had so impressed Gul Begum. What right had you to act without my orders? He asked again angrily, disappointed at losing what he looked upon as sport. I understood I had your orders. His wife replied with well-feigned regret, and there the matter ended, for Gul Begum was by then in Kabul. Another weary march had been accomplished. Yak safari musibat wari diga mukammal musha. Another act in her life had been played. یک کردار دیگه بازی میشه. And she was in a crowded Kabul prison. زن، مرد، پیر، جوان، زدریه. But no man's slave yet, thank God. شور کتانوز ما کنیزی کس نیم. She said to herself again and again that degradation, however, was not spared long. مگر ای هنوز سری وقت a city merchant, یک تاجری از شهر had an order for a slave and his choice fell on Gul Begum. The girl made what resistance she could. هر چی که کوشش کرد که بوم ندمی زندان نشد. But of what avail was struggling on her part a heavy stick. یگم تسوتیکتا. The weight of which Gul Begum did not forget for many a day was laid across her shoulder. دب کده که میج خورد یک چو. And she was led forth, a panting, a slatternly, ill-looking girl. She had a great scheme in view. She would make herself so objectionable to everyone who chose her as their slave that at length she would be treated as an imbecile and so regain her liberty. گفت هر کس که مرا در نوکری خو بگیره در غلامی خو رو بگیره ما او قدر بیزار کنم را که از یک ما زیاد تکیه نکنم. این برنامه را گل بیگم جور نه وقتی که این سوتر مخوره. That same day her aunt, Shireen's mother, was chosen by someone else. But Halima and Shireen remained on, still in prison. The new home in which Gul Begum found herself was in every way very different from, and as regard wealth and luxury, very inferior to Farhad Shah. The bread brought ready baked in the bazaar was not very palatable. The flour being well adulterated by the bakers. The rice was poor, the milk smoked, the girl felt sick at the very sight of it. There was nothing much to do, and the mistress was kindly enough but grossly ignorant. O khatun zuchiz tajir zanni sada aam bud magar khayli jahil. A curious girl for Agha to have fancied, she said to herself. My goodness, I don't think all the water in Kabul would wash the dirt off her. You must go to the hammam, girl, she said. I will give you the pice or pence. Paisa. Paisa midum bor hammam. You can't appear before Agha like that. But Gul Begum only glared and looked stupid. She had managed Farhad Shah's wife by fear and jealousy. Strategy chi bud ki fear u jealousy ro istifade ko ye bibi az ra bayan masha. But she felt that these would be no weapons to use against the patient, dutiful creatures who was now her mistress. Tamam rozdam kar bar rakhta hai. Al-Khazzi cheez rakam kani. Agha, the letter said, what slave you have sent is no good for any purpose whatsoever. She seems to me to be little more than half-witted. Oh, nonsense. Try the effect of the stick on her. The merchant said indifferently. These wild Hazara women are not much above the level of the brutes when first they came in. You will break her in time. Ina Vashian, Asota Rustum Shena. But even as he spoke, Gul Begum tripped intentionally on a great earthen vase or vessel. Surai au. Dan درجاشته يمر قرق اللي غمزنا ورا. أمير قام كي روي شوف ذا. إدنا ذا بيشريخو. Standing just outside the window, it fell against the wall. Surai أمير قام مفتد ده طرف الديوال. Smashing into fragments. Tota masha. But the girl made no apology or comment whatsoever, merely picking up the bottom piece, which still contained a little water. That had been left there to settle, she applied it to her mouth. Ah, dirty wretch, murdar Maila, the woman exclaimed, polluting the last drop of water that is left. Get you gone and don't let me see your sight again. She is only fit to carry your goods from the store to the shop. Agha, she may be of some use as a quli, but as a house servant, she is not good at all. آقا امیر تیر کو فقط قلی جور کم زنج بالا مال بورا بایرا. The merchant kept her a month, but at the end of that time saw a far more likely girl. كم مناسب ترشي كي بايد خانه كم از كم أوقات الخير نكنا. Who would do well for his household as well as for the store. am قلی بودو am کارگاری خانه. So Gul Begum received a sound thrashing and was sent back to their prison. خب هاي بد شد صوتها كويس شد قمشين كويس شد بزري شد برو بس منجي. Her mother and Shireen were still there. Hazara slaves were so plentiful in Kabul at that time that there were no masters to be found for them all. They said توك سودام شد خریدار نبود. Shireen, only too glad to have nothing to do, although it entailed poor and scanty prison fare, used the little piece of mud Gul Begum had left with her with great effect, and no one who came to the prison seemed to fancy her. Push them zigil puda. Shireen koshish mana ki kasura intikhab nakna. Gul Begum was in high spirits when she returned. Gul Begum pas namayad zindani Kabul khayli mutawassilish bulanda. She felt she would yet find a way of escaping to her beloved Hazara hills. And to her father. She had only to endure and to keep up her present role. Shortly after her return, however, she was again chosen. In spite of her squalid appearance, and an old general fancied her strong, active limbs and lithe, graceful form that no mud could hide. He had no wife and had none for some years. So there was a good deal of chaffing among his friends when he announced his intentions regarding his new Hazara slave girl. But of this, Gul Begum was quite unconscious. She only resolved to find out the old general's weaknesses and disgust him as she had succeeded in disgusting her late mistress. Her master had spent many years in India. And had taken to the Indian habit of betel nut chewing. Pano از چیزا خوردور از اندیا گرفتد. And kept spitting all over the house. اینجا تفکو، اینجا تفکو، اینجا تفکو. Much to Gul Begum's disgust. که من تف مکد گل بیگم دیگه میتونیم دل بلا مکد. So she took to beetle nut chewing too. تو ایتر منی مایقس تو زیاد مخرم. And out-Heroded Herod by the way in which she behaved و زون تیر شد پان خوردو و چالی خوردو. Moreover, she refused to conform to ordinary Kabul habits of cleanliness. أصلاً دغمز نظافت و صفائی نیا. Found no means of obtaining the conveniences she was accustomed to in her own country, and before long the general was glad to restore her to her prison home. بیزار مشه مگه برو میرد نمیخوایم بکار نیا. The day will come when you will be turned out of that too. ومزندانم جایز تو نیه خو آمد که رأی منشیره. Her master said, and he saw her hustled off with none too gentle hands by one of his own servants. برکو از اینجا پس ده زندان روان کو. We don't want animals in Kabul. We send them to consort with their fellows in the hills. You'll make an excellent dinner for some hungry wolf next winter. لغمه گرگاش نایلایی تو وحشی برگ. Gul Begum only glared at him as though she did not understand what he was talking about. But she understood well. She was on the right track for liberty. Azadi ke raste par. She was ready and willing to share the winter with the wolves. درسته. تا استوی برف را قد wolf تیر منم. She had far greater fear of man than of wolves. گرگ خیلی خوبه. هایی که دو نوروز زوار. Thank you.